Welcome back, Miles. This is our second interview here to continue our wonderful conversation from out in the park. I think a starting point for our followers is to ask a little bit more about how might someone consider whether or not they should come into therapy. What are some of the things they might be thinking about or reflecting about that might uh, get them there, or what might you have to offer about that process itself?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm thinking from a Dasein analytic perspective, and want to make that distinction between psychotherapy and Dasein analysis. Uh, in fact, be more specific and make this somewhat glib statement that Dasein analysis is psychoanalysis without the psyche, yes? It is, in fact, not about this isolated ego or self or I that we talked about a little bit earlier. But to the question then of what would bring someone to Dasein analysis? That is to say, what would be the conditions that one might expect um, uh, if a person were to make that decision? I think the most important thing to say from the outset is that we're always talking about something that was not imposed on the person by a second party, uh, often perhaps to be paid for by a third party. But that if there's a decision to enter okay, broadly speaking, psychotherapy, but specifically Dasein analysis, it must come from the individual herself, himself, and that it is very likely to fail if it has been pushed on the person, imposed upon the person by well-meaning spouses, parents, perhaps even a legal authority, perhaps a medical doctor, a psychiatrist who's recommended that the person seek out some kind of psychotherapy, some kind of talking cure or course of therapy. That would be the most important thing, that it comes out of an act of freedom to move into this very unique situation. And as you know, freedom is not a rational thing, right? It's one of the discoveries of Heidegger, and has been seen by others as well, that when we are motivated to do something rather than forced to do something or caused to do something, we're acting from a position that we can't rationally justify. So if you ask me why someone should begin this process of Dasein analysis, I would say that's the wrong question, because you're looking for a cause. You're looking for a reason that brings the person there. By contrast, I would ask what motivates an individual to seek out someone like me, like our colleagues, for this. And this has to ultimately come from a place that the person at the beginning can't really explain, right? Um, so if we have to now, let's say, accumulate a list of symptoms, which is to say reports of experience or signs, which can be observed by other people, as adding up at a critical level to, okay, at this point there are enough symptoms or there are enough signs to warrant my entering into psychotherapy. We would again be going down the wrong path, because nothing human is quantifiable, because it's not measurable.
So Miles, given it's not sort of a causal driver that gets someone to therapy, let's say, what might you tell someone who comes to you just as a friend or in passing and says something along the lines of, I've been thinking about finally going into therapy, but I'm not quite sure. What might be some of the things you might tell somebody that they might consider about whether this would be the time for them or the way they might get connected to something like analysis and therapy?
My response would be, why not? And with that, the person then is left to choose, to decide whether or not to do it. Since again, we're not looking for a why for psychotherapy, which is very much in the whole texture of practice today, and which Daseinanalysis challenges. My response, if someone says, I think I might be in the mood to do this, and it will always be a matter of a mood, of an attunement, you might say, to everything, not just to matters intellectual or sexual or familial or vocational, but everything, a gestalt, a form, a whole contexture. And it's in that contexture, that world that we exist, that it feels like the right moment. And so if someone, as you asked, came to me, a friend of a friend, which is more likely to be the case, or even someone who's been referred to me and we're meeting for the first time, and we interview each other, really. That person has to decide whether they feel that they can work with me, and I have to be able to say, no, I'm not sure that I can work with you after that first or second session. We have to be honest with each other about that. Once having agreed that we both have the choice not to do it, then it's up to the person to respond to my brief reply, why not? Try it. And then the person might ask, what is it? I have to be, again, very honest and say, I don't know you, and you don't know me, so I'm not so sure how we at this point could know what it will turn out to be. We might work well together, and we might find that this is for you a liberating experience, and for me too, and then I think we'd be off to a pretty good start. But we also have to leave open the possibility that the fit is not right, the encounter is not harmonious, and neither of us will want to feel guilty about it. We'll simply would will choose to try out different options. So I'm again trying to focus as much as I can on the freedom of the person in this matter of deciding, shall I do this? And while we're on the topic, I think it's worth adding that not only is this freedom the origin of any Daseinanalytic setup, it's the goal as well of Daseinanalytic work. To free up, that's what analysis means, analysion, to free up the person's possibilities that have not yet been realized, or better yet, not tried out even, so that as the person, I hope, will soon find out, that our place of encounter is a kind of playground, as Freud called it, a kind of test place to hazard possibilities that may have been foreclosed to the person up to that time. And I would say that that's always what brings someone, by the way, and not one of those symptoms or signs, though that may seem to be the case. But it is this sense of constriction, of being limited in some way, that ultimately motivates a person to seek out the kind of unusual situation, existential situation that we're calling Daseinanalysis.
Well, thank you, Miles. Again, so much more to say about this, but appreciate the notions of it takes freedom to enter, and it also is somewhat of the course heading in the work itself, together in the relationship. And we will explore this and many other topics in the discussions to come. Thank you again for your time and willingness to sit down and invite us in.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Miles.